You're a traitor from a race of traitors. Disloyal to the core. Rotten like the rest of your subhuman race.
Levi, you can just get out of here.
Vasago picked a random direction, held tightly to his sword hilt, and ran. Unseen snares sprang up from the floor and entangled his feet. The assassin cursed and slashed them with his sword, severing enough of the invisible cords to pull himself free. We're going to start off with Sand and Steel by T.H. Brandt, a short story collection of 5 stories, but I'm just going to focus on one of them right now. The middle story, Mage Killer. Mage Killer starts out with not the hero of the story, but the protagonist of the story, I would say, nursing a headache in a bar when he is approached by a strange woman and her servant who hire him to assassinate a particular necromancer operating within the city. This mage killer, named Vasago, he is instantly head over heels for this strange woman, even though she's dressed like a nun. He goes out, he finds the temple where the necromancer is headquartered at. He does a quick look around to make sure everything's on the up and up, and then he heads in. What I like about this story is that T.H. Brandt shows good instincts for what goes into a sword and sorcery short story. The opening scene of Mage Killer bears a striking resemblance to the opening scenes for Conan the Invincible by Robert Jordan. That puts T.H. Brandt in good company. He knows what the setup is, he knows the high water marks, and that makes this worth checking out. One critique I would have for the story Mage Killer is that there's not enough happening. Not that there needs to be more events going on, but that the events that are there need to be fleshed out in greater detail. The opening scene where Mage Killer Vasago gets hired, it left me with some questions as to how often this is an occurrence in the world he's living in, and just other elements of that. I think if T.H. Brandt had slowed down, everything could have been given more depth, more life and vitality to it. In general, just fleshing things out more so that the world feels like a whole and complete thing. That's just a minor gripe with that story. Overall, I really enjoyed it. I would recommend picking this up. T.H. Brandt has a YouTube channel that I think's worth checking out, so I'm going to leave a link to that in the description. Sand and Steel is 1/4 inch across, and it weighs 4.83 ounces.
I wrote a book. Buy it.
100,000 kilometers, they should commence firing at us within the next 12.7 seconds.
Study. It's ready now, Captain, but I don't know whether our circuits can...
Like and subscribe.
There was an observation station on the Pig, manned by 6 people. These would have to be got off, and the Enterprise, being in the vicinity, got the job. After that, the orders ran, the Starship was to hang around and observe the breakup. The data collected would be of great interest to the slide rule boys back on Earth. Maybe someday they would turn the figures into a way to break up a planet at will, people and all. Captain Kirk, like most line officers, did not have a high opinion of the chairborne arms of his service. And here we have Star Trek, adapted by James Blish. This is a collection of 7 short stories adapted from teleplays for the first season of Star Trek. First published in 1967, just 1 year after the pilot episode of Star Trek aired. What's interesting about this is 2 things. First, it's how sparse the prose are. Most of these stories read more as a summation of the episode than as an adaptation. Details are lacking. It's very terse, very Spartan in the way it describes things. And certain things you would expect to be described, like say the appearance of members of the crew or of the planets or of certain gadgets that show up in Star Trek, are entirely absent. There's a reason for that I'll get into in a minute. The other thing that's striking about this is that it's so early on in Star Trek that certain terms are not fully fleshed out. They're not fully elaborated on. For instance, anyone who knows Star Trek knows the planet Vulcan. The planet is called Vulcan, the language is called Vulcan, the people and objects from that planet are called Vulcan. But in here, none of that's been ironed out yet, at least not to that degree. The planet is referred to in here as being Vulcanus. Spock is at different times referred to as a Vulcanian or a Vulcanite. And I said all these stories are a little sparse on detail. There is a reason for that. Take this next bit with a grain of salt because it's coming from the Wikipedia page for these Star Trek adaptations. But if Wikipedia is to be believed, James Blish did not see an episode of Star Trek until the year 1969, when it said he might possibly have accidentally seen an episode as it was rebroadcast by the BBC. According to the Wikipedia article, James Blish's wife, J.A. Lawrence, wrote a great deal of the Star Trek adaptations in this series. Volume 10 of this is said that to be entirely the work of J.A. Lawrence. but also of James Blish's mother-in-law is said to have had a part in this. And that would explain why all the descriptions in here are so terse, because James Blish literally did not know what the Enterprise looked like. He didn't know what Captain Kirk or Spock or any of the planets or anything looked like. I'm curious to see if that continues through the rest of the volumes. I have each of these up to volume 12, and there's a volume 13, but it goes under a different title. It's not numbered the same as these are. And I'm wondering to see if it's only James Blish who didn't watch Star Trek. If it's true that his wife and his mother-in-law were doing the lion's share of work in producing these volumes, I wonder if they, as well, were not paying attention to what the TV show was, but strictly working from the teleplays given by Desert Blue Studios. Star Trek Volume 1, adapted by James Blish, is a half an inch across, and it weighs 2.92 ounces. So the books by the shelf total went from 36 feet and half an inch to 35 feet 11 and a half inches. The total for books read went from 4 1/4 inches to 5 inches even. The total weight of books read went from 3.2 pounds to 3.68 pounds. There are no new books to add to that total, because for once, I didn't buy any new books. But I'm sure that won't last. That's all I have to say for now. Goodbye.
All right, Levi, you can stick around for that one.